All right, 12 Volt Talk, episode 1. Old school cheater amps. Who was cheated? We
Soon
shall
to find
find
out.
out. He said it, not me. I guess I said it too. My name is Derek, also known as Big D Wiz, oldschoolstereo.com. I do amp dynos. Been addicted to car audio since 1988 with my brother's RX-7 and his Rockford Fosgate Punch 150, his M&M subwoofers. Never worked in the car audio industry. There it is. I'm putting it out there. I'm an enthusiast. So I'm an outsider providing information to car audio companies and also end users. So I have a different perspective than people who are in the industry. So that's where I come from. You guys see me do amp tests and things like that. But today we have a special guest with the coolest last name ever. We have Mr. HiFiVega. Tell us about yourself, Mr. Vega.
All right, so most people know this. My name's Robert. Vega is my actual last name. I'm same. I was in the old school car audio. I competed on the smallest scale possible in the 90s. I like to build things, do DIY videos, and some people know that channel as HiFiVega.com or YouTube.com/HiFiVega. Other than that, I'm the same. I'm just amateur, just out here reading magazines, making videos.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction. So we're both passionate about what we do here, and hopefully it shows. So I'm going to move on a little bit. We're going to talk about the purpose of why we're doing this. And this is sort of a new format for us. Robert and I have been talking about this for a year.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, maybe more. And we just kept pushing it off and finally decided we're going to take the dive. This may not be the perfect, most polished episode of all time, but we're going to do it anyway. So we thought about how to do this, and we thought, it's cool to have YouTube live streaming and be able to put the archive video on YouTube. But also, we thought a lot of people, if they're like us, they like to listen to podcasts when they drive because most people
Exactly.
have a commute to work. So we thought, let's do the video podcast and also do an audio. So we're going to add that in, and we're going to give you guys links and future videos about how to get to the audio podcast. But for now, it's video. There will be an audio podcast section coming. So if you're hearing this via audio, realize that happened after the fact. But we did this just for you, so you could hear us discuss during fun times. So today, we are going to have a fun topic. Robert and I both really enjoy old school cheater amps.
Love them.
And old school cheater amps are probably the pinnacle of old school because a lot of people these days have no idea what cheater amp means. And
Or why they even existed.
or why they existed. So I think this explanation hopefully is going to help
The definitive, I'm calling it right now. It's the definitive explanation. Nothing else on YouTube can beat it.
See, he said it. The definitive explanation of what an old school cheater amp is coming for you. And I'm getting ready to show those of you who are watching the video portion what we're talking about. And Robert is going to, since he was a competitor, he knows more about this than me. So I'm going to flip it over here to my screen. And then I'm going to let Robert talk about the different classes they used to have in the 90s. What was that all about, Robert?
All right, so what I competed in was 0 to 100, but they had classes all the way up into 1,000 watts, I believe. And the way they rated those amps, or the way they rated the amps for competition, would be the 4 ohm stereo rating. Hence, cheater amps began. So now you're taking, say, an Orion 225, 25 watts by 2, but you're dropping the impedance down to a half ohm stereo or 1 ohm mono, and you got 400 watts. And in the 0 to 100, you could have 2 of those because 25 by 2 is 50. You could have 2 of those amps, or you could have, say, a 250 HCCA and compete in the same class.
Right, and I apologize for those who watched. I just realized how I could share this while Robert was talking, so you might have heard him talk and not see this, but now they can see it on the screen, Robert. Those who are watching, Here we can see we have 0 to 100, 101 to 250, 251 to 500. So if you were in the 0 to 100 class, kind of like you said, you'd want to maximize the wattage that you could truly have for that 0 to 100 watts. And your example of the 225 HCCA, we're talking how many watts? I mean, we've dynoed them before. We're talking several hundred watts as opposed to just 100, right?
Exactly. And that was the purpose and the point of the whole cheater amp. And I imagine you can ask Bernie Boland a little bit about that.
Right. So just as an example, and I'll post a link in the video description where you guys can see the 225 HCCA, the 225 HO by MTX. There were a lot of amps at the time that were 25 watts times 2. 50 watts was like it was a known cheater class because you could have 2 of those and be in this 0 to 100 watt class.
It was a sweet spot.
Right, a sweet spot, but yet if you know, the reason they're called cheater again is because you're in the 0 to 100 watt class, but those of you who have seen either the 225 HCCA or the 225 HO videos know that you're getting anywhere between 350 and 800 or 900 watts per amplifier.
Right.
When they're loaded down. So think about that. Think about Joe Schmo who went out and bought a Targa 50 by 2 watt amplifier and showed up in the 0 to 100 watt class versus somebody who had coin and bought 2 either MTX 225 HOs or Orion 225 HCCAs. They obviously were quote unquote cheating because they had a lot more wattage at their helm than the other guys did.
And it became a problem. I mean, even for myself, I jumped up to 101 to 250 or 251 to 500 just to be competitive, even though I could fit in the 0 to 100 watt class.
Right. And stop sharing the screen though for those of you who are watching, and we might go back to that, but for now, so again, we're talking about one type of cheater now, which is the ones that would do more power at a low impedance. So at 4 ohms, which is what these classes were based on, 0 to 100 watts means you could have up to 100 watts total at 4 ohms. That would mean 2 25 by 2 amps at 4 ohms.
Right.
So then we had another type of cheater, which Robert phrases as
sleeper amp.
Sleeper amp. I love this. So in our example is the Punch 45 HD.
The Peanut.
This is the 45. The Peanut's a 30. Come on.
Oh, I don't know Robert Fosky.
Oh,
look
man.
It's Orion red right here.
Oh, you've got to know this. It's got red on it too, right there. See?
Yeah.
So the Punch 45 HD was rated at 22.5 watts per channel. So the 45 watts was total watts at 4 ohms. But again, linked below, you can see the test I did of this. That's a joke for it being 22.5 watts per channel. It's actually, I think, around 50 watts per channel at 4 ohms.
And you could load those down as well. I mean, plenty of people do that. I mean, you could cook eggs on them, but you could do it.
Right. So this amp was $275 US. The Orion 225 HCCA was literally almost 600 retail. But Robert, you probably know better than me. What did one of these cost? If you bought it?
I believe we were paying like 400 new, somewhere in that range, 425.
Okay, so that's more along the lines of what the Punch 150 was at the time, right? About the same?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, about that. So the reason I brought the Punch 45 is to explain, you know, the sleeper amp that Robert calls it. It was rated at 22.5 watts per channel, but it's really like 50 watts per channel at 4 ohms. So you could run these at 4 ohms and still be cheating because you have a sleeper amp. Different type of cheater amps. So
I mean, some would say that Orion's doing that to this day.
What? We're not supposed to talk about that. This is old school talk. But you're right. You're right. But that is a fantastic topic for a future episode, and that
Right.
brings a good point here. Anybody has any topics that they like us to discuss in a future episode, maybe what Robert just mentioned, leave a comment below, and it could be a future topic that we talk about. So the other thing we want to mention, other than the different types, we got the true cheater amps, which were really designed for low impedance, and we have the other sleeper amps, which just did more power at 4 ohms than they said they did, like the Rockford Punch 45. But there was also a difference in price. So
Yeah.
if I went to the audio shop and said I want to get an Orion 225 HCCA, which is here, or I want to get the black version, which is the 275 SX, there was a difference in cost. Now, you might think it could be the how do you say that word? Anodization of the red. Maybe it did cost more. But internally, these two amps are the same other than the transformer winding. But since we're talking about a way that we can beat somebody else, that made these more popular. In fact, Robert, what do you say about eBay and the cheater amps?
So back in the day, you could buy a 225 used for like $100 local. When everything was local, you get 100, 150 max. And eBay kind of really started blowing up, kind of like the old BMX scene. And the prices just got insane from there.
So what I was kind of getting at with that
Yeah.
is, people have gone bonkers about buying the cheater amps, and the
Right.
prices of these went way high. Like the Lanzar 50C, huge 25 by 2 amplifier. Those have skyrocketed. I don't even know what they sell for now. What are they, $500 or $600 on
I haven't
eBay?
seen what's sold in a while, but they're expensive.
So they're really high. But then the funny part, to those of us who know, is the high voltage version. Like for example here, the 275 SX. You can get these about half the price
Yeah.
of the 225s, and this one does more power than that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I
I've
think
got
these days everyone knows that the high voltage design is superior when it comes to that.
right. So people, I think though, the reason the cheater amps got popular over the past 8 or 10 years, when people kind of started getting back into the nostalgia of car audio, is because, man, I wanted one of these when I was younger, but they were more expensive and I couldn't afford them. So now I can get one of these, and they kind of pushed the price up, thinking that these things were magical, like unicorn amps, like they could do
Yeah.
crazy power, right?
Like the 2100, 1600 watts.
No, it's 2000 if you provide enough voltage, Robert. Where
Yeah.
did you get this
Some
BS?
guy on the internet.
I don't know if I trust him because he gets paid by Orion. I'm sure he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, he does.
They send
Definitely.
him checks every month, and I wouldn't believe a word that he said. But yeah, so it's been really funny to me, especially the one that's tested a lot of amps, and putting these dyno tests out on the internet. I think people now who will take the time to view the videos and watch the results will understand that buying a cheater amp, the old school cheater amp. Now, don't get me wrong, these are ultra cool to have in your retro install, right?
Right.
So I can understand people paying a little bit more because they want to have it to create a retro install. But if you're really going for more bang for your buck, the high
Yeah.
voltage version, the black one in this case, would be better.
Specifically in Orion, yeah, the black version. I
Right.
mean, I've had my heart broken by the Planet Audio P225HC. You know that.
Oh,
I mean,
that.
when that amp was new, they had it on the board, and the guy said, "Watch this." He ran every single speaker on the board with that amp, and I was just like, "Man, I gotta have one of these. I gotta have it." I didn't get it until way later. I mean, and they're still expensive. They don't do nothing on the dyno, really. But I mean, on speakers, it sounds pretty good. So I could trick myself into
Well, that's another interesting future topic is dyno versus speakers because that
right.
one, woo, that one's really that one's definitely got to be a future topic because I think a lot of people are interested in that because a lot of people don't believe that the amp dyno results are a good way to measure amplifiers or a good way to distinguish between them
Yeah.
because and we're not going to get into it today but a lot of people don't understand decibels and the way you go between 200 watts and 300 watts or 200 and 250. Oh, sure, it's 50 more watts or it's 100 more watts, but to your ears playing through
Almost
speakers,
right.
what's the real difference between 2 and 300 watts? And again, this is an old school example. So a new school example would be 2,000 watts
Yeah,
versus 3,000, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step back too far for you guys. Like 200 watts. What's he talking about? That's a
Is that for
Walmart
the
amp.
front speakers or?
Yeah, is that for the tweeters, the
Yeah.
horns? They're up front. But going back a little bit to the cost, so we talked about the cheater amps being a little bit higher cost on eBay and places like that because people mistakenly thought the 2100 HCCA was a 2000 watt amplifier because it was just a unicorn. And they saw it on 15 speakers back in the day and they said this thing had to make 2000 watts. Well,
Yeah.
the speakers were a lot more efficient back then. They had huge boxes. They ported them or bandpassed them and just made them super efficient.
Yeah.
So again, it could sound like it was that much power, but now that we have a way to actually measure it, and going back to the 2100 HCCA, I don't know how many people believe that those tests weren't right. I tested three different 2100s,
Yeah.
and one of them was completely recapped, new BJTs that it doesn't have
Uh,
doesn't have the MOSFETs. It has BJTs, so
it was
had
quite an
all.
ordeal back in the day. I remember when
Yeah, it
when I was
was.
going
I
up.
mean
Yeah.
that was for a lot of us old school guys, including
Yeah.
me. It
Yeah.
hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
It was really hard to think this is not the unicorn that we thought it was.
Yeah.
But they still sell for good money, so I think people either don't watch the videos or don't care. And I'm the
Yeah. I
same way. I
mean,
don't care.
like if you take that 2100 and put it on some component speakers, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, so I agree. But as far as the price goes, so we have some examples of pricing. Unfortunately, for the visual people, don't really have a way to show you. But we talked about the Lanzar and another link below because we tested the 50C. The Lanzar 50C was rated 25 watts by 2 at 4 ohms, and the MSRP was $1,500.
Ooh.
The Lanzar 500, which is rated 250 by 2, was $1,120. So $380 difference between a cheater amp and a high voltage amp. What do you think
And
about that?
if you were buying one of those to run today, which would you choose?
The 500.
Everybody. I think everybody would choose the 500 unless you were doing a specific build and you wanted to either recreate something or recreate a feeling or a mood. I mean, the 500, it does more power and it does it easier. It's more efficient. I
Right,
mean,
and it's smaller. A lot of people don't realize that 500 is about 2, 3 inches
yeah,
smaller because when you, and this is a great topic for somebody like Ray, if we can get him on in the future at Linear Power to talk about,
yeah,
is efficiency at higher ohm loads versus efficiency at the lower ohm loads. And again, with all the tests I do now, even though a lot of them are the newer amps, you can see because I'm calculating it for each ohm load. Some of those new amps at 4 ohms were getting like 90
oh
over
yeah,
90% efficient.
they're crazy. They're crazy efficient.
And then you go to 1 ohm, which is what most
Oh
of the
yeah,
new day monoblocks are, and they're 65 or 70%. And of course, old school AB amps were 40 to 50%
right.
efficient at their optimal load. But I think a lot of people these days, and again, this is kind of stepping forward in our
Yeah,
discussion, but it's still important to bring up. A lot of people think because this amp does 2,000 watts at 1 ohm, I should run it at 1 ohm. But what about if you run it at 4 ohms and it does 8 or 900 watts and it's
yeah,
super efficient?
exactly. And
Yeah,
that might be a topic for another day too, because why are they still? Is it cheaper to get that power at the lower impedance? Is that why it's still happening, or is it just because this is the way it was? This is what people are used to.
yeah. I think from the way that the amplifier engineers have described it to me, uh, making a new monoblock amplifier these days for 1 ohm, they're able to do it cheaper, dropping it to 1 ohm versus having it 4 ohms. Now, Brazilian amps are a little different, but they're a different design with the full bridge, so
Yeah,
that's a little different. But again, we're stepping forward here. But if you guys want to hear more about our thoughts about what ohm load you should get for your amp and your speakers and all that, again, leave a comment because we're thinking of more stuff that we can talk about. Robert, don't you love
yeah,
this? That's good. That's what we
that's
bring
how
that
we do
for.
it.
But going back again to another price example, so the Phoenix Gold MPS 2500 was their cheater version of the MS 225. So the MPS 2500 is rated uh, 50 watts by 2 at 4 ohms. The 2125 was rated 125 by 2 at 4 ohms. $899 for the 2500, $799, so $100 cheaper
$100.
for the 2125.
If you were competing, it was well worth it, though.
Well, yeah, exactly, because you're
Yeah,
able to get more of these into that class, whether it be the 250 watt class or whatever,
yeah.
you'd be able to use these. So, the interesting thing, this is a little bit, it's not really off topic, it's on topic, but I've tested the 2125 before, and I keep saying it, but check below because it's in the link. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you'll have to
Go to
check.
YouTube.
Yeah, go to youtube.com and /BigDWiz and you'll see. But so I tested 2125 before, and I've had I don't know how many guys from the Phoenix forum contact me and say, "We want you to do the 2500 because it's more powerful." So a couple months ago, I told a guy who had just got one recapped and everything. I said, "Send it to me." I said, "But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, I don't think it's gonna be as powerful as you thought."
Yeah.
So I tested it for him, and it wasn't. I mean, it was almost abysmal, and I don't remember the exact results, but it was just over 400 watts at was it 1 ohm bridge or 2 ohms?
So,
Either
and
way,
the 2125 done what, 600
yeah,
ish?
yeah, close to I think it was like
Yeah.
550, something like that. So again, you're paying
Yeah.
more to get less. It's kind of the topic of today: paying more to get
Yeah.
less. But
We didn't know that then.
no, we didn't know that, and
You
like you
know?
said, if you were a serious competitor,
Yeah.
then you just had to deal with it. Because if you got into and you know better than me, but if you got into those higher wattage classes,
Yeah.
you could be dealing with somebody who had like 5 or 6 cheater amps
Well,
with your
you
two
want to
high
know that
voltage.
the crazy thing about that is those people weren't using those amps. They weren't using them like you would think. I mean, there were people using them, but locally, people are just using whatever. They brought a Punch 225 2. I had one, matter of fact, the one with the gold end bells, and that automatically put them in the 251 to 500 watt class.
Right.
So just with that amp, so that's a lot of times I'd kind of fill out and I'd see what everyone's doing. Like, okay, he's got this amp, he's got this amp. I know where he's going to be, so I'm moving up so I get a trophy.
Yeah. There you go. So he's cheating the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing what you can do.
Born and bred cheater, huh?
That's right. So with all that discussion about the different types of cheater amps, the price differences between the high voltage version versus the high current version, which is the cheater ones. We also had some interesting things that went on with
Oh,
what do
you
you
mean
what?
like straight up cheating?
Yeah,
Like
what do
you're
you want to call
actually
this?
really this is legit cheating. Like
Legit cheating, and our
like
example
you're
of
doing
that
it just
is some company that starts with a U.
it's actually an amazing company, and I'm actually proud that they did it.
So so what is Robert talking about? Some of you may not know, but some of you probably do know. Uh, US amps. And any
Yeah,
of you guys who've ever seen one, tried to identify one,
yeah.
good luck.
And U.S. Amps, if you say you didn't do it, you're lying. I seen it in person.
Exactly. I blame you.
You
No,
U.S.
but
amps, man.
it's been uh, it's been a big challenge over the past year or so. Every time somebody comes to me, and I get a lot of emails where people say, "What is this?" or they usually say what it's worth. But the US amp stuff, there's so many of those that use the same board, the same chassis,
He's saying
everything.
everything.
The only difference literally was the number of windings on the transformer. And some of them were only like two different. So you could count all them all the way around, but you went from a 700 watt to a 1200 watt amp or whatever. But this particular example that Robert's talking about is, say, um, the VLX series. And we've tested some of the VLX series, the 400 and the 25. And the 25 is probably, I wouldn't say, well, before we get to the last amp of the king of cheaters, the VLX 25 was probably the king before the real
Right.
king took over. But you're talking 12 and a half watts per channel
Yeah.
for an amp that's, 2.5, almost 3 feet long. And
And
nobody that looked at that would think it's really a 25 watt amp.
no. And at a local, every now and again at competitions, you have ringers come in from outside. So you're competing against your local buddies. You're competing against each other, having fun, all this. All of a sudden, this guy pulls up. He's got a VLX 25. He's got four 9500 digital designs. And he's like, yeah, this is 12 and a half watts by 2. So I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I think I'm going to compete 101 to 250 today.
That's funny. Robert's there. He's there with his screwdriver pulling out amps,
Yeah.
as everything's happening. I'm not in this class. Or either adding them, right? You got
Yeah.
some more
Or
on
you
there.
could, at our local, you could just move up. If you had less than that, you could choose
Oh,
what. So it was a little bit loose, a little bit loose on
okay.
that.
Well,
So,
that's cool. Well, I've been to a few car shows and a few competitions, but I never was involved in them. So it's interesting to hear that perspective, and I'm sure a lot of you could
and
provide.
they probably know way more than I do because I
Yeah.
only done on local level. So
Well, that's again, that's what this format hopefully is for. If you guys
yeah,
have your experiences that you want to leave comments and discuss, that's great because we'd like to hear it too. It we don't claim to be experts in everything. We're here because we're enthusiasts and we enjoy
yeah,
talking about it, and we think we know more than a lot of people know, but we don't know near as much as some of you guys know. Some of you
yeah,
are much bigger experts
exactly.
than us.
We're experts at talking.
Yeah, well, we try. We try.
Speaking.
So yeah, so I guess Robert, we come to the point of talking about the cheater amp to end all cheater amps.
So you're talking about the concept, the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. And this was what year?
Oh man, you got me. What was it? 97?
97. And
Oh, I
that's why
got
they
it.
called it, remember?
That's right.
Concept
Yeah,
97.
that's
So as we are talking, those of you who are viewing this, the video wise, I'm going to show an article from Auto Sound and Security. And this was
yes. This is an infamous article.
1998, so this is a little bit after 97, but it explains, what the deal is here. So you can see the picture of the dude here by the Orion van with the Concept 97.3. Now, Robert, what was this amp rated at 4 ohms?
1/2 watt per channel.
Okay, so 1 watt total for that amp
Yes.
that's as big as that guy's whole torso
You
and
could have
upper
100
body.
of them. I
You
mean,
could have,
isn't that all that was made of them, right? 100.
let's see. It tells us here in the article somewhere. Let me find it. You put me on the spot because I thought it gave the number of how many of these were made, and I think you said 150. Up right here. We built 150 units and sold a little over 100 of them. So
Yeah.
we don't believe that, do we?
No.
No, because
There's people that had 10 of them in
there's
a
a guy.
car.
There's a guy right now on Facebook, Jack Callie, I think is his name. He's
Yeah.
still got 10 or 15 of them.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen people that have 5 or 6 of them. Granted, it could be that this is something that people knew was special, so they held on to them. But I
Yeah,
think I think they really made more than 150 and sold more than 100 of them, according to this.
right.
But
Or maybe at the time it was true and they did more, but
so we got a little off topic with that. But so here it is. We decided to rate the Concept 97.3 at zero point 0.5 watts per channel just to get attention. So Orion, this is old school Orion, but in my mind, their thought was, we created the cheater amp market,
yes.
we're going to end it.
Yep. And that's something I actually mentioned in the video I do, the history of cheater amps. It kind of cheater amps started with Orion and somewhat ended with Orion. They were the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's right. So what this did is this actually got Orion banned in the 1998 season. And it mentions that, I think, in the article here about that. They got banned for cheating,
Yeah.
beyond the means of cheating. How ironic is that US Amps was allowed to do it since like 94, 95, whenever they came out with the VLX series. It might have been 96.
Or even Earthquake. You tested what I have, the 40 UHC 40.
Yep,
So they did it as well.
they sure did. So
I mean, that amp done what, like 400 watts at Forum's mono. It's a mono amp, and it was rated 40 watts. It done 10 times that.
yeah, so another sleeper amp.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
super duper cheater, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
So there is our discussion about cheater amps, about sleeper amps, about. We didn't really talk about the year they kind of started. So I think, if I remember Bernie right, Bernie Bolin,
Yeah.
wasn't it 86? I think the 225 HCCA came out.
I believe so.
I
I
think
was thinking 88, but I think you're more in tune with that. When that very first come out, I wasn't even able to drive in.
I
So.
think it's somewhere between 86 and 88, but I thought I remember him saying 86. But either way, that was a long time ago. So we had from, we'll say 87, just to round up between the two. Had 1987 to 1997. It was really only 10 years. But, and I wish I would have thought about showing the picture, but we had how many different revisions of the 225 HCCA?
So we had the digital reference, the pop top,
Yep,
the R series, and then what they had was the G after that, or the GS?
G4, G5.
Yeah, G4, G5.
So, and the Moon and Stars was the first one.
Stars, yeah.
So there's 6 total, but the final revision was G5.
Yeah.
Somebody at Orion who was working during that time, or wherever you're working now, if you're in the marketing department or whatever, can you explain why the 6th generation Orion 225 HCCA was called a G5?
I mean, I'm going to say it that after the R series, was it really even a 225 like it used to be?
That's a good question, and that shall be a topic for the future, because I have one copy of each version. I took that upon myself a few years ago to start trying to find every version of the 225 HCCA, because, like Robert, I'm a cheater amp fanatic. I've had a lot, sold a lot, but those specifically I thought would be really neat to go through.
To the whole order.
I've
seen it. It's glorious.
Yeah, and to show, what happened. What do they change between Moon and Stars and digital reference and pop top and everything?
Yeah.
What changed throughout the way? And of course we know they got bought, and that still happened over the past few years too.
That's definitely a topic. The DEI buyout. That's something for the future.
Yep. And what's funny to me is I wasn't in big in the car audio at the time of the DEI buyout, so
Yeah.
I didn't understand when I came back and people were talking about that. But I think the ironic part about it to me is I hear people complain about, oh, this happened when DEI bought Orion.
Yeah,
It's not the same company. But then my original thought is, well, what would have happened to Orion if DEI didn't buy him out?
exactly.
Where would they be? Would the name still be around? It might have been bought by some Chinese company, like kind of like they did Polaroid a few years ago and made
Right.
DVD players. And you're like, I didn't know Polaroid still made stuff. But yeah. So I
And
mean,
I
that's
kind of lived through that a little bit because I didn't get out of car audio until my daughter was born 2002. So I was right in that edge before I got out of car audio for a while.
yeah, and that was a time frame that I was sort of out. And again, that could
Yeah,
be another future discussion to talk about. Our time frames where we've been in and out of car audio, because I think guys our age, I'm mid 40s. Rob, you're early 40s,
no, late 30s.
late 30s. So I'm an old
Yes.
man here. But what I was getting at is most people our age have grown up out of the car audio industry because they buy,
Yeah.
Lexus or whatever. It's got a nice system, and they don't play with car audio anymore. So we're like kids playing in the sandbox, and we hadn't
Yeah.
stepped out of the sandbox yet because we want to keep playing. But um, I had a point with that, but I can't think of what it was. But anyway, I'm just saying that we have experience. We're older than a lot of people that even may watch this or may listen to what we have to say, but that's cool because we like
Yeah.
experiences from both. We've been where you've been, the younger guys, but
Yeah.
we're also a little more experienced, a little older, and know some
We've
different
made a
things
lot
about
of the
cardio.
a lot of the mistakes that have been made. We've both made them.
Yes, and that's an important way of learning, right? You
Yeah.
have to you have to make a mistake to learn. So I think we've kind of reached the end of the topic for today for the cheater amps. What we thought about what we would do, and Rob, I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'm gonna do mine first. We didn't really talk about if you wanted to share a different website or if you had a tip or if you want to do any kind of special share, but I'll do mine first so you can think
All right.
about yours. That way, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's what.
But what I'll first say is Google Hangouts sucks, and I have an old video with Market Cardio Fabrication where they let me do a lower third, but I can't do it anymore without buying expensive software. So here's my lower third, Big D Wiz, HiFiVega. But also, don't forget, go get you a t-shirt, teespring.com/store/Big D Wiz. You can get towels, t-shirts, all kind of cool stuff and
Cool
different
new colors
designs.
too.
That's right.
See,
And let me
I
tell
only
you,
had the black ones. I didn't wear it, but I have the black ones.
dude, let me tell you, I bought one from Dean 5-Star Car Stereo down
Yeah.
in Florida,
Clearwater.
and I bought one of theirs off Teespring.
Yeah.
It is my favorite because it's so soft.
Yeah.
When Dean and I both set our accounts up, we use the super soft T-shirts, which cost a little bit more.
Yeah.
But man, that thing it's nicer even than this one because this one didn't come from Teespring. But I really like their stuff, and the way they do it on demand means I don't have to buy $1,500 worth of T-shirts and then it takes
Right.
2 years to sell them. This way I can do them on demand, and plus you guys get them much quicker because I'm slow with shipping. But anyway, that said, shameless plug for me. I'm going to talk about one of my other websites or actually YouTube channel. So, and I greatly appreciate these guys and what they're doing. And the reason I'm going to bring them up today is they invited me to be on their show like this, and that's Everyday Audios with Skip01 and Taylor Fade, T Fade. So I'll link it below, but it's Everyday Audios. If you do a search on YouTube, you can find them. And what they're doing is kind of the same thing that we're doing here, but they've had more where they've actually interviewed other people. They interviewed Jacob at Sundown. They've interviewed some other people, and I wanted to thank them for kind of kickstarting me to get to start doing this with Robert, because Robert has been on me and I've been thinking about doing it and I've just kept putting it off. But I think this is really important, and I hope that you guys find this stuff interesting, and also hope that these guys do well, because I enjoy podcasts. Robert and I both enjoy podcasts, and I think a lot of people do listen to them on the way to work. So we we're hoping that you guys enjoy what we do here. So Robert, I don't know if I gave you enough time to.
Yeah, I was just looking it up. Okay,
Okay.
so my thing, if you like this cheater amp stuff, check out my video on history of cheater amps. A little different than that. We discuss some of the same things, or I discuss some of the same things. Check out that video. But I want to mention a couple channels. The first one is Old School Car Audio with Craig. He does a fantastic job. I mean, his production level is excellent, and he's got the coolest workshop. I'm very jealous of his workshop, but you should check out his videos. And then another guy that just started, Heywood R Floyd. He's been doing a lot of old school stuff, and he just kind of commented on my video. And when people do that, I kind of check out. I want to see what they're doing. So he's got a bunch of cool old school stuff. He's just getting started, but he's got a lot of cool content. So check those out, and that's basically all I got for you. Well, guess I could tease this. Coming up soon, I'll have a 12-inch sub shootout, and soon to me is like a month or two.
You learn pretty quickly when you make videos on YouTube that you don't promise stuff,
Yeah,
because I always think people are sitting there by their screen when they say, "Oh,
waiting.
2 weeks, I'm gonna do this."
Yeah.
Don't say that, because they're texting me, emailing me, "Hey, is this done yet?" But those are great. You're right, Robert. Old School Car Audio by Craig. He's gonna blow up because his stuff is just on a completely different level
Yeah.
than the stuff that most of us do. It's just like television production quality, and it's really interesting stuff too. He does a great job on his videos, and I wish him the
Yeah.
best.
Even though they drive on the wrong side.
They drive on the wrong side. We have very similar names, but Craig and I are
Yeah.
great friends. I'm sure that we'll share people back and forth. Yeah, I can't wait one day to go to Australia and visit his shop. You're right. That is
That'd be awesome.
mind-blowingly awesome.
Yeah, maybe
But
that's what, not a road trip, I guess.
uh, not on any road that I'm aware of. We could take the 37 forward and see how far we could make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much. That's another future topic.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks, Robert, for joining us today and being involved in our video podcast, our very first one. Hopefully we didn't fumble through it too much. And yeah, I guess we're just going to sign off. So thanks again
So,
for everybody for watching.
Are we out of here? Or?
You want to say it? I loved
No,
it.
I can't do it. You do it.
I loved it when Sean did it on that one video where he did his what was it, a Civic or something?
Oh,
and I let
yes,
him
he
shoot
did.
the whole video, and he did it very end. He said, "I'm out of here." I was like, "Man, that's great." So maybe I have to get him to record it.
My son, I need to get my son to do it.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
watches it.
We'll have to record that, so we'll use that at the
Yeah.
very end. But anyway, thanks, guys. We will catch you next time.
Yep. Thanks. We'll see you on the internet.
All right, guys. We're out of here.